Okay, we've talked in the past about paper and some of our coloring utensils and all that, but today we're going to hit on all that again. So this is actually a watercolor paper, and there is, so to speak, a difference in the sides. The back on this is just a little smoother than the front, but let me show you. Let's get a crayon and let's just use this piece. All right, so if we take a crayon and lightly, ever so lightly, go over this. Do you remember when you were a kid and you did little scratches and you could see a message if it had been written on a piece of paper before? Indentations. Now, can you see all the indentations? That is what we call the tooth of paper. The paper itself has ridges in it. Okay, so when we colored across, you could see all that white area poking through. That's what that is. Okay, this is regular old typing paper. So if I do on here, the only thing you see is what's coming through from the mat below. Okay, then we have this. Oh, the watercolor paper was this one. Okay, that was the watercolor. It was a lightweight cold press. And if you're doing watercolor, you're going to want this kind of paper because it will actually allow your paints to seep in and do the things that they're supposed to be doing, the little explosions of color and such. In fact, this is watercolor on this paper, as is this. Okay, so then this is the tag off the end of my ream of this paper. It's like a cardstock. So if I do this, do you see how there is a texture? It's ever so little, but it's there. So whether you're doing crayon or pencil or whatever, your different kinds of paper are going to work differently. Okay, now I'm heavy-handed, and then I don't want to put, let's see, I should grab one of my coloring mats, or here, just this underneath should work. Slick surface instead of my textured little mat. So then if I go on here, see, there's even a difference between just these two, the cardstock versus typing paper. And then if I do that over on this paper, you're going to see another challenge to it. This is actually colored pencil on the watercolor paper. Okay, what if we're using Posca pens? Does that matter? Well, let's see. Here is a green. Now, the thing is, the green doesn't look very green. It looks more like black. Okay, that's on the typing paper. And it did not go through. This is on the cardstock. Do you see a difference? Maybe I need to prime it. That could be too. Let's try again. Yeah, that's better. But do you see how I'm getting lines in there? They're not in this one. Just to make sure it's not because it was not primed. Yeah, see? I'm not getting the lines on the smooth paper, but on the cardstock, I am getting some of those lines. See, I've still got the lines. Okay, what if we do watercolor paper? I can feel it bumping under the pen, and it is leaving some streakage going on, but it's not bad. Okay, let's look. Now I show you all this so that you know when you're going to different avenues of painting what to expect. Now this is not, let's see if that's what's in there. Oh, it is what's in there. Okay. So if I get a watercolor pencil, now my water is very dirty, but let's say I just dip that in there. What happens on watercolor paper? All right, it's working. It just fills in all the tooth without any problem. Okay, on these, this one's the cardstock. Goes on smooth. Get just a little resistance, not bad. Regular typing paper, yeah, it is not made for typing paper. It just kind of scoots around some. Now, what if we take and actually just do some coloring with the pencil? And over here. Now, you can see I've got all those little white indentations again because it's dry pencil on dry paper. But then, what if we get out a paintbrush? And let's see what happens when we wet it. Again, dirty water, so don't mind me. Now I'm testing to see, and I've already soaked up all the water in those first two sheets. I'm checking to see how the paper holds up. Now I can take and do a wet on wet. So I'm just wetting my area. And then I'm going to come back in with my pencil. And then let's take, now I've not played with these pencils much at all, and let's just blend that out. Okay, now let's go back and look. This, it's actually, I can feel my finger right through the paper. This one, if I move too much, I'm going to put a hole in the paper. So watercolor paper is best for your watercolor. Let's look at another kind of watercolor. Let's check this out. Now, these are watercolor that I reviewed for you once before, where I made my own pans up just because I wanted to. I'm one of those people that likes to collect things whether I use them or not. So we're going to do some wet on wet, and then we'll also do some wet on dry. Wet on wet means I'm going to get that wet. I'm going to go into my paint. I'm going to make sure it's really soppy. Okay? And then, can you see it just starting to bleed? You get all kinds of nice little things happening. Now, wet on dry. Okay, so that's wet on wet. And we're going to come down here and look at wet on dry. Yeah, I didn't say I was going to stay in the lines. And then I can still come back here and play with this because it is a watercolor paper. Okay, so there's that. What if we're using, I was just rinsing that brush. What if we're going to use some markers? I have, let me move the water because we would not want to spill that right now. I have some Tombow markers here. I got these on a deep, deep sale at Walmart once. We're talking they almost paid me to take them away. So if I use these, I'm going to come through here, one pass over, and it's filling all the little divots in that paper. Okay, so that's with a good marker. Now it looks somewhat streaked, so what if I go back and forth over it, immediately moving along before it's had a chance to dry. Now let's let all that dry and see what the difference is. Then we have on top is our typing paper. Did not go through. And then our cardstock. Did not go through. Now if you're doing lettering, this is where, I don't know if I can do this upside down. You do light on your upstrokes and heavy on your downstrokes. Light on your upstrokes, heavy on your downstrokes. Light and heavy, light and heavy, coming down. Okay, yeah, I was going to do laugh, but I can't do all that upside down. So when you're doing lettering, works fine on that paper. Did almost go through. I did a lettering video, goodness, several years back, so you could look that up if you needed to. I am not practiced up on it, but you can see you can write on either of these papers. Let's try this bumpy paper. How does it work? And this, I just put my hand in it, is still wet. So, and that's how that dried. So it is going to get into those pockets, but it's going to be streaked. Okay, let's go over here. Let's try lettering. Yeah, it's just heavy-handed on that downstroke, and then light as you come up, heavy as you come down. And again, I have not practiced in a while, so mine is not what it could be. But you can see it filled in all the little divots. So going back and talking again about the paper, if I were to rate all three of these papers, I would say watercolor paper has huge tooth. The tooth in watercolor is like this, if you're looking at it microscopically. Okay, you're going to have to color and color and color to get rid of all that tooth, all that white that's showing through. Then if you're on cardstock, compared to this, it would be more like this. You're going to color for a bit, do a few layers, and each time it's pushing that color further down into these little valleys of the paper, the divots, the tooth. Okay, so as we're going, it is filling it in. Got it? That's why sometimes when you have your book with a piece of paper underneath it and you get some weird texture, you're feeling what's underneath. Now that wasn't too bad, but look here. We're definitely feeling that. Definitely feeling the texture there. But comparing the tooth, what is the tooth like on this paper compared to these two? Well, if we do this, it's almost covered. So I would say in comparison, it's probably like this. Your tooth is not very big on that paper. Now, you might say, oh, I'm going to print everything out on typing paper, less tooth, less coloring. There's a problem with that when you're doing coloring pages. If you're wanting to blend colors, let's just pick two colors that are not the same. Blending on here, getting lighter, getting heavier here, right? Then over here, heavy, then getting lighter where we overlap. All right, now watch it in comparison to our cardstock. I'll do it the same way. Heavier, getting lighter as we come over. I probably did that heavier than I did the first time. Okay, heavy, lighter as I come over. Do you see a difference in the blend? Now if I keep blending and playing, can you see how that's already blended away? Okay, now that's blended away. Not sure that's ever going to blend away. And this may actually not either because I did that so heavy. Can we make it go away? Let's go lighter. Let's go lighter. Okay, now let's come back in. Try again. Try again. It's a lot of trial and error, and I'm on top of another piece instead of straight on the board with this one. So it does work, but it's just the paper is not as thick, so you're not going to be able to stack as many layers of color. So if you want a good blend, you need to be able to put several coats of color down. And if you don't have very far for that color to go, it's going to be full fast. Where on here, you've got more area to cover, so you can stack those layers of color. That's how we get like really good gold shades and stuff when we're using a lot of browns and yellows and going from one shade to the next to the next. So paper can make a difference. And again, this is that cheap typing paper. This is my favorite. It's this paper right here, this cardstock. And I even use this in my scrapbooking when I'm doing Evie's little photo album. Now, this was bought, last time I bought it was, gosh, I got 3 reams of it. And it's been over a year, probably 2 years ago. It was not near the price that it is now. Okay, I will tell you, it's not real cheap paper, but you're going to get 250 sheets. So that's a good thing. This paper, watercolor paper is expensive. It's, let's see if there's a price on this one. Here it is. Now this is probably 4 or 5 years old at least. Nope, no price on it. But yeah, it's not cheap. I want to say for, this had 15 sheets. I probably paid more than $10. Oh, probably more than that for it. Because water paper, yeah, not cheap. So, what we're going to hit on next time is something like this. It is very relaxing, and it's very easy, it's very fun, and it's a great time to play with blending colors, with your markers, with your paints, all the different things. So come hang out with me next session, and I'm going to tell you more about that and how it actually can help your mental state of mind. All right, I will see you in a few days. Bye.